Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with the Virtual Tasting Society. I am Vadim Perlovsky, and today we are excited to welcome a brand that was recommended to us by a good friend of ours. I had reached out to Amanda and said, "Hey, what are some distilleries you're excited about? Something we haven't tasted yet that we should try, we should feature." And without a hesitation, she recommended Boulder Spirits, and give it a couple of months, and here we are. So we're super excited. Thank you so much for the recommendation. No pressure, better be good. um, Ryan, thank you for working with me to put this together. We're excited to try some of the stuff. Joining us today from Colorado, Ryan, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about Boulder, and then we can taste.
Yeah, so I am Ryan Negley. I am the lead ambassador slash marketing department slash blender for special projects for Boulder Spirits. We began 15 years ago, 16 years ago, as a company. Fast forward 12 years ago, the current owner moves to town. When I say to town, I mean Boulder. He moved to Boulder from Scotland. So Alistair, my boss, he had a dream of making single malt whiskey. He married an American, and she was sick of the rain, so they were ready to move back to the United States. So he came over here. He found Colorado. There was already a distilling scene going on, so he kind of kept track of this distillery that was in the works, making gin. Once he kind of pulled it together and really pulled the trigger, he invested into an operating gin distillery. We became Vapor Distillery at that point. From there, about 2 years go by. That's the manufacturing of the still that takes place. So we cook on a Forsyth still manufactured in Scotland. That still, once it arrives, we start making whiskey at the beginning of 2015. That is kind of really the beginning of Boulder Spirits as we know it now. We went along for a handful of years making our vodkas and gins and other stuff, and we launched a bourbon before the single malt. But at 2018 is when we launched the single malt whiskey. And then by 2019 was the big fresh rebrand. And so the bottles that y'all, that Vadim has seen and that you can see on the internet, this whole branding. So this whole stuff is only 5 years old, 4 years, 4.5 years old. So Boulder Spirits, relatively new brand, though we've been in the distilling community for 15 plus years. I joined the team 5 years ago with the launch of the single malt whiskey. I was already talking about single malt whiskey in another forum for a different distillery. And I was lucky to have that job because nobody just kind of jumps into craft distilling world with, on coming out of college or something like that. It's something that you kind of got to know people, and it's a real tight, small industry. And so I came at it from bartending. I was a bartender, competition kind of cocktail bartender, and got real nerdy about whiskey. And then I started working for some of the smaller distilleries, and then became sales manager for one. And then here I am at Boulder Spirits, and started off strictly in sales and just kind of bullied my way in the back to become somebody that kind of gets to play with some of the whiskey and some of the stuff inside the barrels. So that's me. Alistair, to this day, day to day, he's operating a distillery. There's 6 of us full-time employees in the company. That's it. So when I say we're a small distillery, we're a small distillery. We're probably sitting on, I'd say, 1,000 barrels of inventory right now. That's our whiskey. So do the math on that, and a barrel is about 29-liter cases. So you can see about what maximum we could be right now. However, we've got the capacity to be about 3 times that size. Still small. We have no intention of ever growing for the sake of investment. We're not doing it to sell off the company. This is Alistair's dream, and the rest of us are happy to be along for the ride. That being said, and please, anybody that wants to ask any questions along the way, obviously we've got a host here to help interject with all that kind of stuff. Boulder Spirits is absolutely about American single malt whiskey. Started started off as a gin company, twisted our hands into making a bourbon, but did so to make single malt whiskey. Alistair, that's what he drinks. That's what that's what we all make. It's what we want to make. Is what we drink. So, single malt was where it was, and how are we going to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the single malt community? Well, see, the thing is, back 12 years ago, when Alistair had a bright idea, he kind of didn't do that much research. He just thought he was the only one with this bright idea. So he comes to the United States, finds out there's lots of other whiskey being made, doesn't really know exactly how much other single malt is being made. So by the time we launched, the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission had been formed. We adopted that terminology, American Single Malt, from that get-go. And so he wanted to make whiskey that was true to his taste profile, and the climate that Colorado has, that's what really dictates the flavor of our whiskey. When I say the climate, because we age in fresh oak, and nowhere else in the country, besides this chunk here in the Mountain West, is really as bone dry, throughout the year on relative humidity. And so these other whiskey making regions, Scotland, excuse me, the Midwest, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, et cetera. And then, of course, in the Northwest, where a lot of good whiskey is being made, but just, again, much different climate. So Colorado, pretty unique environment to what we're doing to make whiskey. All right. All that being said, I'd hate to keep anybody from having a little bit of whiskey. We've got, let's see, ASM, because we sent a bunch, right? Y'all got like 6 or 7?
6 samples is what we have. We got American Single Malt. I was going to ask you, what's the order we should taste in? We got American Single Malt.
We're going to go in order, if there is such a thing. You all are all adults that paid for this, so you can do whatever you want. But as far as tasting notes and how I'll talk about them in order, is flagship single malt, so ASM. We'll go to ASM Bib, then ASM Bib 7-year, and then the port, and then we'll go 10 essentials, and we'll finish on peat.
That makes sense. Okay.
I know it's the 10 essentials is quite a bit more complex whiskey than the peated, but it's still peated whiskey. We should finish on the peated malt whiskey. Okay, with that being said, flagship whiskey, our American Single Malt. This is a little jammer right here. This is also key to our brand and our ethos. This whole idea of being a part of this American Single Malt whiskey, this category. It's a future forward kind of facing deal. It's something that because we are creating something new, we didn't want to go at the labeling with some frayed edges, found grandpa's recipe bullshit kind of idea. So even the labeling on this is because of its asymmetry and all that kind of stuff, and it tells the story of how our whiskey's made and then where it's made. It was just something to kind of set it apart and say, oh, I don't even know what kind of whiskey that is. The shape of the bottle is kind of saying American whiskey, but beyond that, I'm not sure. And so key part about us, and I said it again, our climate and dictating the flavor of our whiskey. We are an American whiskey first. We want to talk and preach and evangelize American single malt whiskey, but we are an American whiskey company. So for us, every single bit of whiskey that we've made and released so far starts in a virgin oak barrel. So all of our labels have a little level 3 char note right there, and that's to tell the American whiskey consumer, really any consumer, that this whiskey was spent in a freshly charred barrel. No other kind of whiskey would care about what level char you have on your whiskey unless it's an American whiskey. Other countries just don't char their barrels. So that was key. So of course we're single malt whiskey, so it's 100% malted barley. Our malt is imported from the UK. We use Munton's Malt House. We started out at Crisp. But basically the idea was Who's making the best single malt whiskey in the world? All right. What equipment do they use? Cool. We'll go get one of those. What grain do they use? All right, we'll use that. If we got 2 out of the 3 steps kind of there, and then it's only on us to really kind of mess it up. So this grain is imported from the UK. It was grown for distilling. It was not grown for beer. It was malted for distilling. It was not malted for beer. So it's meant to be whiskey. See, here in the United States, everyone that's in the American single malt whiskey, it is a distiller's yeast, yes. Everyone that's here making whiskey in the States is kind of caught between, are we going to adopt a beer mash style recipe? And I don't mean beer mash by, of course, anything besides malted barley, but roasted malts or, a brewer's malt, all this kind of stuff that end up with creating that brewer's kind of flavored whiskey. We didn't want that. Alistair didn't want that. We want to make a whiskey flavored whiskey. So our malt is imported. Fast forward a bunch of steps. We have local malt in barrel that will be released over the next few years, but it's just not ready yet. The story behind that is our local malt houses hadn't been malting barley that was meant for whiskey. So so it was imperative to us that we kind of test and try and trial their product for a long time before we committed to it. So every whiskey in our glass right now imported malt from the UK, distilled on our foresight still, of course. To answer that quick question, yep, it is a distiller's yeast. AB Mori is the yeast source. Again, pretty prominent name in the single malt whiskey distilling industry. Distilled very much in American style. When I say that, I mean we're not so tight on our cuts. It's heads, hearts, and tails when you're distilling. Heads, junk, kill you. Take your nail polish off, that kind of stuff. So that's gone either way. We never redistill that. That's just trash to us. And we wait until it's very sweet part of the hearts before we make that cut. On the tail side of it, when I say this is the American part, we don't go so very far into the tails. As soon as it starts to turn, we stop that, and the tails become a pitch into something else because we want the sweetest part and the richest part of that distillation cycle. Our Lin arm on our still, so big pot round still, fat neck. The cone is very much shaped like this Glencairn, not a very steep angle, but the Lin arm is pointed down. So as everything's distilling up here and the vapor is condensing, it doesn't have to fight very far to go back into the condenser. It really collects here, and what we're trying to do is create a really big, rich, fatty whiskey. Because again, we're an American whiskey. It's going to go into virgin fresh oak. It's going to see freshly charred oak in a hot climate that nobody in really besides Stranahan's out here had messed with, and a couple places down in Texas and Arizona, but certainly not from a Scottish malt whiskey making kind of style. So we designed a whiskey knowing that the end product was going to be aged in a freshly charred barrel in a hot climate. Let's make it as rich and as fatty and as oak soluble as we possibly could. And so with that, I certainly hope I haven't kept you all from tasting. Anybody can chime in with a little hand and say I'm thirsty. But this is our flagship American single malt whiskey. This is 4 years old. Just really clean, bright, big American malt whiskey. Cheers.
I really like the kind of almost floral note on the front, and then some fruit notes in there with like toasty oak too. I really like the balance there.
We're very fruit forward nose on our stuffs. We noticed earlier at the 2-year mark, it was very just apple, like apple skin. And at the 3-year mark, it was starting to turn more of the stewed apple. And at the 4-year mark, it's starting just to get a little bit more complex and bring in different fruit tones, and touches of field fruits and cherry, not quite cherry, but Yeah, more maybe apricot, stone fruit. Somebody got cherry on it, so good for you, Jason. Um, but really balance, everything is always about balance. And the biggest thing about American single malt is being scared of over oaking, your malt whiskey. So um we're very proud of where this stuff drinks at 4 years old. Everybody asks me, and so I'm sure somebody will ask me later in this, presentation, but what's my favorite whiskey? I don't have a favorite, of course, but what do I drink most of? This one right here. What does the distiller drink most of? This one right here. What anybody that works for us, it's right here. Um, we were absolutely after our number one goal in as far as our overall flavor profile is actually texture. Texture is first to us. So we're after a richness on the palate. We're after an oiliness. We want to see, that fun part of drinking whiskey. So yeah, so anybody that notices a richness or even that kind of creme brulee kind of tone on the sides of the palate, we're trying. That's absolutely something that we're trying to do. Thin whiskey, that's no fun. All right, so that's literally where everything starts. Is is this whiskey? From here, it moves on. So anytime you're ready, go ahead and put the bottled and bond, 4-year bottled and bond in your glass or a glass near you, or just stare at it and listen to me talk. Whatever you all want to do. Because there's a 4-year and a 7-year bottled and bond. So I want to make sure you're all straight on that. But the 4-year bottled and bond, it's not going to be that much different of a whiskey than this. It starts the same. I literally just said everything starts, at that flagship. It's already 4 years old. Making bib stuff isn't that much different. Uh, the main difference, of course, being the proof. But as y'all know, the more alcohol, that's more, ethanol concentration flavor. That's where a lot of those esters are living is in there. So you get a concentration, a little bit higher concentration of flavor. We used to pull different barrels for our bottled and bond statements. Now we don't. We literally, it's just less of a proof and more of a proofing time, more of a tank time. But it does wonders. It tastes absolutely different than our standard bottling. And why bottled and bond? It was imperative to us that we have that on our label. We are, again, an American whiskey company. Even though we're trying to be a global whiskey company in the long run, we're an American whiskey company first. And the tobacco, nice, I love that. Absolutely. When the consumer goes to our shelf and they go to the section that's not there called American Single Malt, and we're wherever the hell we are on the shelf, and somebody can see that it says bottled and bond on the label, that means something to an American whiskey consumer. Even though it's a very archaic rule and it's very, it's been toned down, and it's the amount of tolerance it takes, I guess. But it's almost more of a marketing term now, even though we still got to follow all the rules, but very self-governed. It's very important to say that this is a 4-year statement from one distillery, milled mash distilled in that distillery, taking the highest echelon and the most American colloquial word to put on single malt whiskey. That was just big for us. It was a big deal for us. So the flavor was there. I mean, when we first launched it, it was, a full year ahead of our normal bottling style. We were at 3 years for the flagship back then. So the flavor profile was way different, but now it's something that we're just really proud of, and we love the way the tasting profile comes through, and we love how different it is. But we love that it's our statement here in the United States. This is the very first nationally distributed bottled and bond single malt whiskey in the country. So as far as distribution, we got it first. 2 other places that in their distillery tasting room, but we don't talk about them. Yeah, the orange zest nutmeg allspice. So very much the bib for me is absolutely a Christmas kind of like Christmas cookie, Christmas cake kind of dram. Like it's totally like this time of year. Like I wish you all had like a little ginger snap cookie or something next to you to like accompany it. That's great. Jane, yeah, totally. I'm with you. I think the 4 year or just the standard bottling, and I'm not sure what this is literally just a water content thing, but um, the bib does drink a bit cleaner and softer, less oomph. Happy to again field any questions as you go along. Please be participatory. Uh, I will
Question.
talk and talk and talk and talk. Oh, go ahead, Anna.
So I don't remember if you said this already, but who's your Cooper? And I had another barrel question. Oh, I was gonna ask about entry proof.
Let's see. When we very first started, barrel entry proof was 125. Like we were totally going, and as far as when I say industry standard, you know what I mean? Like the big guys, right? Like that's you read the book on how to distill and how to make whiskey. It says 125, so you go 125. That was pretty short lived. That was about a year, maybe 2 years of doing 125. Then it was a 120, and now we literally kind of mess around a little bit. We don't go below 115, but 117, 18, 19, 20, anywhere in there is fine, Um, but certainly not anymore, not above 120. Original cooperage was 100% independent stave. No, excuse me. I'm sorry. Totally misspeaking. Was Kelvin cooperage. That was all Kelvin cooperage. So for the first 3 years of us making whiskey was all Kelvin. Then we had a gap, and then it's a myriad of oak. Like over the next few years, we're going to taste probably 5 different cooperages, taste profiles, and start seeing what we don't do anything different. Like we make whiskey in a very house manner, and it's not like we don't. At least it hasn't been this way in years. We don't mess with ferment temps. We don't mess with ferment times. Like we have a system for making our core whiskeys. We have a little bit of stuff that we've messed around with, but that's that won't see this label by any means. It'll be some weird stuff, but um, so we'll start seeing the way the other oaks, how our process tastes in that over the next couple of years. But I mean, anybody that's in the industry knows the deal what happened the last couple of years. So wherever you could get oak, you got oak.
How many do
Tony,
you have an average number of barrels you're blending into a
into
batch?
Yeah. I'd like to say yes, but it fluctuates. We'll never go less than like 8. We got to have a bit of consistency. The biggest barrel dump we've ever done was 24. So again, we're babies. We're little babies. I we don't even have the space to put it after we dump it. Like we'd have to build a different system. So it's fine in the barrel racks that we've already got space for over there. And then the other honesty part of that is volume of sales. I wish we were selling this much single malt. But right now it's smarter to let it age than it is to put it into tote and just hope it all sells at a magic 4-year statement that we're keeping. All right. Bottled and bond, you got the gist of that one. Please move on to the 7-year bottled and bond. Conversation doesn't change here. Bottled and bond is still important to me. If I wanted to switch to talking about bourbon, that's my favorite way to drink bourbon whiskey. It's my favorite way to compare bourbon whiskeys, because everyone's got the same rules basically. It's that for the most part they're all going to be 4 years old. If it's older than 4, you put what number it is, but it's just your recipe, your distilling style, and your aging style all competing against the same 100 proof mark. And when it came to this 7-year statement, we had some 7-year barrels. We could have done some cash strength, or we could have done whatever, but it was still important for bottled and bond for us. Also, this is now the oldest bottled and bond to ever hit the market in the United States. So for American single malt. So that was a huge deal for us. But we were proud of the way it tastes. And we really, really enjoyed the 100 proof mark on this. It's now we're switching those fruit notes again, right? For me, this is absolutely going like very, very young strawberry and early summer stone fruit and that kind of stuff, a grilled fruit. There you go. I love that idea. But really, I mean, all of the fruit essence is just becoming bigger in that perfume sense, in a polite perfume sense. Whereas the oak that we're always scared of, right? We're still scared of single malt whiskey being overtaken by oak in our climate. It's handling. It's absolutely handling. Absolutely. There's an orange essence kind of really to all of our that's a bit of our DNA. Even in the younger whiskeys, it's a bit more of an orange zest. Whereas you're right, like for me, I think this is in my tasting notes, but like Turkish orange peel for the 7-year. So it's not only is it handling the oak, but it's really embracing it. I'd be scared to say that this same whiskey, if it was cooked on one of our other friends' stills in this state, everything was done the same, every single thing. But if it was cooked on a different still, it would not come out this good. It would not hit this level of balance. The balance of not being over granular and not being over oily and not, or not enough certainly, but it's just something that we're moving from being scared and kind of intimidated of the future to really excited, like super excited to see how 8, 9, and 10 go.
I have a quick question about the aging.
So I'm just going to chug whiskey.
Quick question about the aging that you have there. I was wondering if the higher altitude and thinner air and oxygen content, does that play any part into evaporation or loss?
So regarding climate, barometric pressure, that's what it is. The elevation, I don't think, maybe the folks up at like 8, 9, 10,000 feet, but we're 5,700 feet, so it's not that drastic. But the overall barometric pressure, or lack thereof, I should say, is making our whiskey, just lose angel share like crazy, right? I got to be careful how I say this. There's no such thing as aging faster, right? Nowhere ages faster than anywhere. Everyone ages differently, that kind of thing. We just have different styles of oak impact at our different climates and that kind of stuff. What we have is, and I love talking about this with my buds down in Tucson at Del Bach, but the diurnal shifts, right? Our daily sunset to sunrise and that middle of the day, how much that swings and how much in the summertime. And so really May through September, there's big, deep breaths. Every day it's a big, deep breath. And in the winter, of course, like anybody else, it chills out, but we're not rickhoused. So it's, they're still sitting at 55 degrees or whatever, we got to keep the warehouse. So there's still action going on in the winter, clearly just not as much because there's not doing like this. But if we're putting that much pressure in those hot months, or lack of, there's that much pressure inside that, and the heat from the outside is building that pressure, and two things are trying to escape, right? Ethanol and water. Well, if there's not a bunch of water out here in the air, guess what's going to leave? It's not going to be the ethanol. It's going to be the water. Balance. Everything's trying to balance itself, whether it be pressure or how the molecules are touching each other and getting together. But we're seeing, and somebody else will ask it, I'm sure, Year one, we're losing 18%. Year two, no, we all know that's a bunch soaked into the wood. Not all of it though, right? Year two, down to about 13 or 14%. And then years 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. But yeah, after 4 years, a 53-gallon barrel's only got 33 gallons left in it. Like, it's crazy. Anyway, 7 years later, we have this wonderful whiskey. And I love it. I love it. I'm really pissed. This didn't make Fred Minnick's top 100 American whiskeys. I sent it to him. But just super proud again of how our whiskey is handling age. And still, like, most anybody could be able to put out this bottled and bond age statement older than us anytime, but for whatever reason, no one's going for it. Ruminate on this one for a second. No race. We're not will running for whiskey over here. Oh
Speaking
man.
of the angel share, I just gotta say, I've had the Lost Lantern that you guys did.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So like
Amazing.
the peated one?
I don't think it's Pete. It was the one that's 74% or something insane.
Yeah, regardless, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was so good when I had it in a blind, and
Oh,
I was
no.
like, there's a carnival going on in my mouth, and I don't even know what's happening here. But it wasn't too hot, but I still added some water. I was like, oh my God, that's surprisingly drinkable for that amount of loss. But yeah, amazing.
Yeah, we have some casks that, especially these earlier casks, right, that we had higher barrel entry proof, that are, the leakers and the ones that were buried next to some, hot water pipe running by the wall. So they were probably, they never saw, whatever. But we've got some barrels that have next to nothing in them, basically, and we taste them and we try to guess. Everyone guess, like, what do you think? What do you think it's at? And after about 140, you just have no fucking idea, like, what it's at. And I don't know how, and I still, like, seriously, none of us can figure this out. But we had one that hit 150, like 7. And I mean, there was only like 15 gallons in it, so that makes, sense. But it was just like, what? No, that can't be right. Like, literally everybody tested it by themselves, like, no, give me the meter. Like, give me you go get the cylinder. Like, we're doing this shit old school. Like, it was, yeah, like, our climate is crazy. And Stranahan's, they humidify their warehouse, so they're not seeing the full effect that we are. And Deer Hammer down in Buena Vista, they're higher elevation, so they don't get as hot as we do, and they're a little bit more humid out there. So we are very unique, even within Colorado, to our barrel aging action. Total Wine as a select bib. Total Wine in Colorado, maybe, yeah, probably. We sell a lot of single barrels to Total Wine. They take care of us. Bib in Florida. Wow, awesome. Sounds fantastic. I had no idea we were in Total Wine in Florida. All right, enough ruminating. Oh, that's delightful. Let me see this tasting order and make sure I'm not going to mess anything up. All right, so we are into the port, right?
Yep.
Let's do a port. Do a little port cask finish. So, our port cask finish. Very, very, very straightforward about it. Our whiskey at 4 years old, it either goes into glass, it goes on to age, or it goes into a finishing barrel. In this case, this is a tawny port wine cask that it went into. Truth be told, this was only a marriage of 2 casks. At 4 years old, it takes damn near 3 barrels of whiskey to fill one of those tawny ports, back up. So if you imagine, it's like 5.5 total 4-year-old casks that continue to, we add a little bit of water to bring it back down to proof. Remember, at 4 years old, most of our whiskey's at 130 to 135. So add the water, bring it back down, put it back into that finishing cask back at 125, and then finishes for 1 year. My favorite part about this part of the tasting is that you've had nothing but American oak up until this point. We had 4-year American oak, 4-year American oak, 7-year American oak, and now we see the addition of European oak. And my favorite thing to do is not just sharing those flavors, but sharing the texture and the mouthfeel that European oak specifically has on American whiskey. And that wonderful crushed velvet sensation down, not just the center of the palate where the cinnamons kind of happen, but all the way through the palate. And then how it kind of bleeds and sticks and just kind of finds its way into nooks and crannies. And then it's the spices, right? These cool spices that American oak just doesn't have. Take into the account that we're putting in some pretty warm whiskey, 125, and it's going to go right back into that conversation we just had. Our very warm climate and our warehouse, it's warm climate. Like, it's not like we leave them outside or whatever, but we don't, like, our garage door to our warehouse is open in the summer, so it sees direct sunlight. We don't air condition anything in there, like there's vents and all that kind of stuff, but we see actual temperature differences between 14 feet up high and the floor. So we're seeing micro little aging areas, but this port, then the way that it just grips and marries with our big oaky malt whiskey, pretty stoked. This is actually Alistair, the owner. This is his favorite whiskey. This is what he drinks all the time. Yeah, big jams. I mean, it's, crack open the fresh jar, but made with, this real dark, deep, plummy kind of a grape, and this almost, stewed cherry kind of tone, that then covered by like a really, really dark, I don't even want to say chocolate, but it's kind of in there. It's more of that raw dark coffee and cocoa, like if there's a mocha powder.
Yeah, I'd wear this as a perfume.
Say it again.
I'd wear this as a perfume.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
like,
amazing.
put a little touches of it in there and just kind of, oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's this was affectionately we used to call this our little black dress. This is our sexy whiskey. Very much an end of the evening, and pairs well with big proteins, and does well with smokes, and it's yeah, it is damn skippy. I appreciate that. But again, we're after those bigger flavors. There is nothing really nuanced about the flavors of our whiskey, so we know we're making American whiskey for really the American palate first, and then the rest of the world second. And big flavors are where it's at here. So we do not reuse our finishing casks. It's an expensive way to make whiskey, but as soon as we make it and that cask is done, that goes on to somebody else. Hopefully to do something fun, but otherwise that we've used that flavor, and so it's somebody else's flavor now with our DNA on it. But that's pretty good whiskey, huh? That's not what's in my glass, so I'm going to pretend. Let it ruminate some more. So this is actually going to be the segue into the next pour, because there's an element of tawny port in the next expression. So I hope you're all genius connoisseurs of whiskey. So I know you've totally memorized every single flavor profile that you've had from the first, second, third, and now will be the fourth pour. Or this is the fourth pour, but yeah, try to kind of really memorize this very specific fruit tone, this amount of tannin, this this amount of spice as we carry into the next pour. Which is our 10 essentials.
Please tell me this is a reference to hiking.
I will tell you that's a maybe. I will tell you that this is the second in our series. Again, we're a team of 6. I am the marketing department. So we do have a series of special releases, an annual special release. Last year was number 1, and that was the Trailhead. And so that means that we started at the Trailhead. And so our very first special release one-off was a peated expression finished in sherry casks, married with an unpeated expression married in sherry casks. And that kind of got us going. Now we've launched that. Year 2 is the 10 essentials. Our bag is packed. And really, Anna, what this is referring to is not the actual elements, 10 specific elements that you should put into a bag, but what we've collected over these handful of years. And we've got a port cask finish. We had launched a sherry cask finish, and we've got all these casks that we're doing projects with. This is what we're doing those projects with. So in this 10 essentials, I used 5 casks. We used 1 cask that was 5 years American single malt with a year and a 9-month ex Armagnac finish. 5 year into tawny port barrel for a year and a half, and then 5 year into a Pedro Jimenez sherry cask for almost 2 years. Those 3 casks were all married together, along with 2 straight American single malt whiskey casks to really kind of add some back end. It needed some sweetness. So I needed some brown sugary kind of caramelization kind of element to help balance it. And so this is our edition number 2 of whatever I'm going to end up calling this series of whiskey. But yes, absolutely. This is my kind of ode to showing off our blending capabilities, not prowess, but capabilities. And I wanted to send it in such a far different direction from the Trailhead. Thanks for the balance remark. There's obviously no peat in here. It's not dominated by one kind of finish. It's, for me, I hope this is a no less than a 2 to 3 sip whiskey. I hope this is something that the first sip you're kind of confused more than enjoyed, and the second sip you kind of tried to figure it out, and the third sip you're like, shit, I really like this, or I just really respect it. I'll take the respect part too. But yeah, just having fun, right? Point of this whole small and craft distilling thing is not to imitate anybody else. It's to find new flavors and to find a way to express new flavors. And for us, that's fresh oak first, and then finding balances between whatever other finishing flavors that we put onto it.
I feel like the Armagnac brightens it up somehow. Like there's some darker notes from some of the other finishes, but it kind of rounds it out in a really fun way.
It's like I kind of compare it to like a nougat heavy candy bar, where old school candy is really like less reliant on the sugar, like it's just a little glaze of it. And that's what the Armagnac cask was just a little glaze over the otherwise like strong tannins of the tawny, and then the kind of more nuttiness that the sherry's bringing in. But the overall kind of like spiced baked nut kind of profile, it's absolutely my, I just love it. And we bottled it specifically at 49.5% ABV, so it's perfect after a hike. But because water is the most essential of all of the ingredients. It's water. Now here, you'll love this. We did a promotional hike for this a couple months back. People in Colorado hooked up with a local influencer, gave away this rad hike. I mean, it's a silly little hike, it's like 3 miles, but it was a rad hike. Local bag designer gave us bags, put all the essentials into it, and had a field day on Amazon buying all this junk, and announced the winners. And I'm driving the van up to the trailhead and all this kind of stuff, and we're just having a great time. And we're on the hike, and I'm talking about the whiskey and really what the name of it is, and I'm just saying this exact same story. Only what comes out of my mouth was, yeah, like this is it's the 11th essential. And I was like, God damn it, why didn't I name this the 11th essential? This is supposed to be named the 11th essential, but the 10 essentials it is. But I love it. I hope you do too. I saw somebody put up a price point on it. Yeah, if Total Wine's got it, yeah, it should be it. This MSRP is at $65. We have before I say what I'm going to say next, last year's special release, much smaller quantity, 7% higher, 6% higher proof, but it was a $95 bottle of whiskey, because it tasted every bit like $95 bottle of whiskey should. For us, at this proof, at this age, at all of those qualifying elements, and when all of us on the team, we blindly taste this whiskey and we say, let's put a value on this. We know the cost of goods. We know all like what it's worth per se. But what's the value on this? And we all pretty much landed on, well, a couple of people said 75 and 80, which I thought was nice. But I think in the climate that we're in, at 49%, this is absolutely a value at $65 on the shelf. Knowing that it's 100% malted barley whiskey. I don't believe, and I might get myself in trouble here. There are very, 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 very few craft and or small distillery whiskeys that are worth over $100. I don't, there's just not enough pedigree. There's some real flavor and there's some taste out there, but I have yet to see it consistently from any one provider. And there's a few, Starlight makes some amazing stuff. Leopold Brothers does, do great stuff. Westland, they do okay stuff up there, but we have this thing at Boulder Spirits that until we put out a product that blows our minds and that we are going to feel comfortable, as a consumer paying over $100 for, and that comes down to everything, packaging and everything, right? That's the time that we'll do that. But for now, our 5 to 7 year old whiskeys, we stand firmly behind the price, but we don't feel that they're overinflated either. So our 2 cents on sharing some fun whiskey nerdom with that. Whew. Okay. Are we ready to move on? I can't see anybody, so just one person say yes.
So other than Total Wine in Denver, I know when I asked you, we could order stuff online. It's just that where can we buy this?
I will probably, we need to add this to our fulfillment, to our website. Our website ships out of Florida. That's all right. So let's dig into that. There's no such thing as distilleries shipping anything to anybody. That there is no direct consumer at a national or much of a local level for that matter. So any distillery that you go to and you go to their website, there's nobody in the back of their warehouse packing stuff up and shipping it out. It still has to go through a distributor. From there, it goes to a store. There's super secret stores that do dedicate their time to packing up packages and then mailing them out. So we have a distributor in Florida that operates the shipping part of our website fulfillment. So we just haven't, because of the holiday stuff, basically, So this stuff will be on the website probably in February.
So you ship to Florida and then they ship back out to everyone?
So really, so it's always a 3-tier system, right? Producer, distributor, and then store. Now we have to have a 4th tier because it has to go producer, distributor, kind of another wing of a store, and then the store itself for the fulfillment side. So everybody takes that little bit more of a cut, even just to get it to the web area, which is why every single bottle shipping site you'll ever see is, free shipping on 3 bottles or whatever, right? Like you got to try to get those margins back. But California is just too big of a beast for us to try to tackle as far as distribution goes. Like we tried early on, and if we find the right little boutique spot that got us in the right stores, that for those consumers that are really caring about our stuff and that can be a shipping, partner for California, then we'll think about it. But for now, we're just babies,
This is fantastic. I'm getting like a lemoniness on it that I really like. But as I mentioned in the chat, my palate's been shot all day. I've been munching on citrus that I've been dehydrating. So
no, it's totally like one of those like when you scorch the lemon for the zest peel, like it's got that kind of that zing, that quick that citric zing.
Like a good tart, like a lemon tart dessert. Got the sweetness, it's got the lemony, the citrus, this acidity. That's fantastic.
Right, and then we put like almost like a peppery ginger syrup, over that to kind of like bring that back.
I noticed you have a cast strength bourbon on your website, but no cast strength malts. Is there a reason for that?
Thanks for asking that one. It's something that we've left for single barrels only. So far, somebody asked for a picture. I don't have a picture, but there you go.
That's not what she meant. I'll let you finish and then we'll do the picture.
Yeah, so we've had a few store picks do cast strength. I'll be honest, I don't like true cast strength malt whiskey. I don't, especially ours. Some of our 6-year stuff that's screaming at 135 proof. It's good. It's absolutely palatable, but it's still our whiskey, and I want people to drink our whiskey how I want people to taste our whiskey. You can add your own water to a certain point, but we're gonna wait. And if we do launch a cask strength, it's not gonna be a true cask strength. It's gonna be a distiller's cut or whatever you want to fanciful term you want to put on it. We realized that we need to do that. We got to go way lower barrel entry proof, way lower. And do we have some of that in oak? Yep, sure do. And will that experiment, hopefully yield the results that we think? We hope so. Otherwise, whatever. It's just another fun whiskey experiment. But cask strength, Colorado, dry climate, single malt whiskey, it's a lot. It's a lot. However, at 115 proof, totally different story. The demand is not there. I really wish it was, man. I really do. There's a Lakewood for Total Wine. That's Lakewood, Colorado. There's our Canadian market. The Canadian market that's where all of our cask strength malt goes. Canadians know single malt whiskey, and they're not afraid to grab. So they don't speak in proof; they speak in percent. So 58 to 60% ABV malt whiskey, like they're enjoying that stuff. But down here, it's from what we've seen move on off of store floors for they are very cool. for Colorado shelves, the consumer is not after cask strength single malt whiskey right now. The nerds, us, yeah, dude, for sure. Like, absolutely. When you come to Colorado next time and you come digging through our casks, yeah, it's gonna be a hell of a time, and that stuff tastes really good. But there's only so many nerdy American single malt whiskey consumers. We got to build the category first, and then we can start dropping some of the cooler, more esoteric stuff. We are totally being more of a crowd friendly version of ourselves on purpose. But if you got a store, you want to buy a cask strength barrel, well, they're for sale.
Awesome. So yeah, Jordan pointed out the picture. So thank you for reminding me. We invite everyone to raise a glass. Hopefully you still have something in your glass. And get Lucas back on the call. We've got almost everyone, I think. All right, I'll give him 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, well, Ryan, we want to thank you for being here with us tonight. Cheers to you. Cheers to Boulder Spirits. And smile to the camera. Perfect.
Okay, so we got one more, right?
Yes, sir.
The peated malt. All right, once you finally all imbibed the rest of this 10 essentials. Oh man, I like this stuff. Luckily, I don't have to pay for it. I just keep drinking and drinking and drinking it, and it's easy.
Ryan, what's the ppm on the peated?
So we purchase it. There's only 3 levels you can purchase it from our place: low, mid, and high. And it comes with a little teal day, around 15, around 30 to 35, and then above 45 or 50 or whatever it claims. So we buy the mid stuff. So our peated malt whiskey. This goes right back to our very first conversation that we had. My name is Ryan Negley. No. We're here to make American whiskey. We're an American company owned by a guy from Scotland. Our still is from Scotland. The grain and malt is from Scotland. The yeast is from Canada, but might as well be Scotland. But this is American whiskey. This is the only time that I know of that exclusively fresh American oak has been used to age peated malt whiskey, let alone in this hot climate that we do. Anna, you're there on my screen. What's that? Did you guys use used oak though?
No, we've done both.
But when it hit the glass, was there ever exclusive fresh oak?
I think I won't make that claim.
There we go.
Maybe.
I remember getting real tipsy with Matt one day, one convention, and being like, "Hey, this is how I say this. Is that real?" He's like, "Yeah, real enough. Perfect. I'm gonna keep saying it." So the only peated malt whiskey that has ever been just the malt distillate put into a freshly charred oak barrel, after 4 years, add water, put it in the glass. We didn't have a choice but to make a peated malt whiskey. No, Alistair was not going to open a distillery, being from Scotland, and not make a peated malt whiskey. But how are we going to make it so it wasn't just we're trying to make Scotch? And that virgin oak barrel was absolutely the key. The ability to put that fresh layer of oak onto an otherwise earthy, kind of mushroomy, dense distillate, and then to apply this huge amount of fresh butterscotch and caramel to it, let alone the fact, again, it's still a fresh barrel. That's a whole lot of charcoal. That's a lot of filtration that's going to happen. So we're cleaning this earthy, rich, it's still sweet and fruity, but this earthy distillate in our hot climate, in this fresh amount of charcoal, and then you've got the wood sugars to throw onto it. And so This whiskey, this is why I actually work for the company. Alistair came to me 5 years ago, offered me a job. I politely said no. I came back again about a month later, said, "Hey, here, try these whiskeys." I said, "All right." And I drank the first one. I was like, "Okay, it's single malt whiskey. It's fresh oak. I get that." And then I drank the peated malt, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? I've never had this flavor." And that's what's important to me. This was a flavor that I'd never had. I'd never had this amount of oak on an otherwise smoky, earthy whiskey. Nor had I had this amount of like caramelized oak, of course, on it, right? It's just a fun new way to express an otherwise style of whiskey that's kind of been done, by every which way possible, except for a new barrel and a hot climate. What that created, of course, is pretty great. Like this whiskey's great, we shipped a 6-year cast strength cask up to Canada, and my affectionate name for that cask was Raisinets, because it was just this deep golden raisin kind of flavor profile, back ended by, again, this coffee and chocolate kind of tone. But then it was all, all right, so it's dirt, right? It's fucking dirt. But which kind of dirt is our peat? And I refer to this whiskey as my mushroom hunting whiskey, because this is very much June or so in Colorado, and June at like 8,000 or 9,000 feet. It's super wet and super, like, your boots are super wet when you're out hiking and all that kind of stuff. And there's a bit of a freshness about it, and kind of a spruce tips are starting to come out. But it's got this wonderful richness and denseness to it that I really enjoy. And then, of course, the peat it's just a piece of the flavor. The bottle says peated malt, and that scares probably more people away than it should, but it's a touch of peat. Peat's a piece of this. It's, little sprinkles of peat. But it's an American whiskey, again, first and foremost. Any comments on that one?
I'm trying to find it on your website. Is it listed as something else, maybe?
No, I should just say peated malt. Our spirits. Yeah,
It's right at the top.
row green. Says American single malt whiskey peated malt.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what it looks like on the shipping part of the site. I never go there. I should probably know that.
Go to their fulfilling center in Florida. Just roll up there.
Well, give me the address. I might.
Yeah, I remember when I was bottling this. Yes, in my bottling line. I was pleasantly surprised at how it wasn't medicinal or iodine-y. It was a very subtle smokiness, very sweet.
And so this also goes into our distilling style, right? When I say it goes back to one of the first thing I talk about, we have a sweet, we'll call it sweet heads cut and a sweet tails cut. If you're making Scotch, if you're in Scotland and Ireland, you're going way into those tails. You're pulling all kinds of the phenols that happen further into that tails distillation, and that's what's ending up in your whiskey. We're not doing that. We're making a very, very tight cut, and every bit of that other bit is going to be used as a part of a redistillation, for the tails. But our cuts very much determine the final flavor of this whiskey, as much as probably the oak does, I would say. Ooh, I'm going to vote. I know what I'm voting for.
Please do. This peat is just all sweetness. It's interesting.
It took me so long to figure out that flavor, and it's almost like how clover like if you get really familiar with clover and clover flower and like clover honey and all that kind of stuff, how it's got this grassiness, of course, right? But there's a spicy kind of little faint spice backbone, but also like not eucalyptus, but a brightness kind of on the back end, almost mentha, like menthol kind of tone to it, where it leaves a freshness on the back end of the palate.
Now you're speaking to the 90s kid in me, because I'm getting a little bit of a clove cigarette, which has that kind of spicy
Yeah.
eucalyptus note at the end.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, it's probably been since the early 2000s or late 90s since I've had a clove, but dude, that would go great with some peated malt whiskey for sure, bud. And yeah, this is absolutely a peated malt whiskey for somebody that hates the word peat. For somebody that's I hate Scotch. Cool, try this. Oh, I don't drink peat. Yeah, you do. Try this. We've flipped more people into drinking malt whiskey with this whiskey than we have probably with any of our whiskeys. Because it's a flavor that is so unique, but as well familiar. Like there's more of a barbecue note to this whiskey than anything else, as far as like what's an American flavor you can put behind this? Well, what's smoking sweet? Fuck barbecue, And so that's something that we can kind of have a bit of touch to the American palate with on this whiskey.
All right, looks like we got all the votes in.
Oh,
You want to take a guess of what the group's favorite expression was of the night?
Well, I don't know. Please, I'm anxious. Please just tell me.
Just pick one. What do you think we liked?
I'll say the port cast.
All right. By a long shot, it was the 10 Essentials.
Oh,
Yeah, 10 Essentials got over 50% of the votes. And then Portcast was second. So there you go.
y'all are too kind.
The
Too
complexity.
0% for the peated malt. That's funny.
Yeah. I think for me the lemon curd on the 10 Essentials that really did it for me. But Adam gets a vote, so
we get I get one chance a year to show off some real complexity in the combinations of oaks and do whatever we got to do, and so that's what we're trying to do is showcase that. When I look back on this whiskey, here in a few years, I'll probably be pretty pissed that I priced it where I did. It's from the reviews that we've had already on it, it's very very heartwarming, and it's nice to know people also like this whiskey. Thank you everybody that voted. I appreciate that.
absolutely. Do you guys have a variety of things laid down in your warehouse? What's something you're excited for in the future? What's your next masterpiece?
I get excited about every 6-8 weeks or so I get an email, and it's one of our barrel brokers, and they're saying, hey, here's what's on the boat. Here's we've got these finishing casks coming up. And you scroll through, and typical, you got some Oloroso sherry and some tawny ports and some ruby port, and a bunch of red wine, all that kind of stuff. But every now and again, there's those casks that come up, and you're like, "Yep, we're getting that," because in 3 years, that's going to be something absolutely incredible. And so that's what we've been doing for a few years, is trying to build a little collection of casks that we can just keep creating these combinations of flavor, and keep creating new ways to drink single malt whiskey. I won't go into the whole dialogue of which casks we've got coming in and stuff, but man, it's all of them. Like it's I'm very confident in our whiskey as a base at 4 years, that I know which casts to stay away from, which flavor profiles will absolutely won't work in, but that's very few, So we've got a whole long way to go of practicing and playing and finding new things to mess with for sure. That's the most exciting. The years part, the age part, right? Finally hitting 9 or 10 years old. Not as much. None of us care about it as much as you would think.
What time of year?
Most of the whiskey we all drink is still 4 years old. Like that's where we like it.
What time of year do you do your special releases, like the 10 Essentials and Trailhead? Is there a set time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a marketing calendar that they're supposed to be released on, but does it ever fit? Typically not. I deadline myself that it's got to be. So January is when I started. Like I already know what flavor profile I'm going for. And if Anna's still here, we're at the trailhead, we packed a bag and now we're somewhere along the trail. Probably right around 11.5 to 12,000 feet to be specific.
Surely you're going up a 14er by this point. 14er next.
We're working our way there. Plus all of Stranahan's snowflakes are all 14ers, so I can't just go straight to that. So yeah, I've already got some of the whiskey picked out for it. There's still lots of work to be done. Like it doesn't even really started, but I already know where it's gonna go. Got to come up with the name, the color for the label, the copy. Obviously got to taste the whiskey before you can really start to do the copy. But I try to have myself deadline to have that whiskey done by end of April. But I want to have it released. I want to have it in distributors' hands in their warehouses by the end of July.
Okay.
And usually it ends up there by the third week of August.
Okay. I'm from Colorado. And I'm still make it back a handful of times a year. So just
man.
When I should be paying attention.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Where at?
Denver, Boulder area. I was most of the time in Denver in the suburbs, but I was in Boulder for 8 years.
Nice. Yeah, same deal. I live in Denver, but find myself in Boulder for the last 5 years. Yeah, so we don't have a calendar per se, but we try to make sure it's available. It's on shelf for fall time for October 1st.
Good to know.
What else? Who else has a fun one?
Hey, so I was actually in Boulder 2 weeks ago tonight. I think I was, and while I was driving to Boulder, I stopped at Estes Park at Stanley Hotel, and they had a cask strength bourbon that they were selling.
You went downstairs.
Yeah. So it was pretty. I was pretty surprised that that your lineup tonight was all single malts. When what they were selling there was the cask strength bourbon. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the birth of that one and kind of what goes into it?
Yeah, for sure. So for you bourbon drinkers out there, yeah, we make bourbon. Again, Alistair, he wanted to make single malt. We convinced him. I say we, I wasn't part of the equation at the time, but we as a company, convinced him to make a bourbon because that's what makes money. To this day, it still outsells our single malts 3-1. It's got the B word, it's bourbon. People buy that stuff. We made a bourbon for a Scotsman. Our bourbon recipe is 51% corn. It is 44% malted barley and is 5% rye. It's a pain in the ass to make. We're probably going to run out of it soon. We have plenty more coming up for a while, but it got real popular real quick for a minute. But it's got such a unique flavor. It drinks so soft and so under its proof. Again, it's pot distilled, so it's going to create another layer of texture that most bourbons don't have on it. And then that malt content that both softens it out as a whole, but also adds just like a low radar kind of, you know, fruit tone across it. That it at the 4-year mark, we were excited. At 5 years, that's when we felt we were ready to release a cask strength bourbon. We sold a few other barrels at 3 and 4 years that were cask strength to stores, but we weren't going to put our name on one yet. This year we launched 6-year. But yeah, that 5-year ended up winning number 10 on Freddie Minnick's list for top 100 whiskeys of the United States. So it does well. We're very proud of it, but we're American Single Malt Whiskey Company.
And I guess if I find myself in Boulder again, kind of, is there a distillery experience?
Yeah, our distillery is available. Go to the website, book a tour, you know, online, and one of those kind of deals. But yeah, full distillery tours and tastings and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Absolutely. We're actually about to add a for you folks that are familiar with Boulder, there's an outdoor pedestrian mall called Pearl Street Mall. So we're actually about to get a storefront on that mall, which is damn near impossible for most businesses. So
Wow.
pretty lucky to have a little tourist outreach right there in the heavy tourist center. I'm literally scared of how much whiskey we're probably going to sell there. There's like 1 million people a year go up and down that mall in a town of, you know, 150,000. I don't mean to downplay the bourbon. We love it. We just want people to drink single malt whiskey. All right, Adam, what else? Give me another one. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still on the 10 essentials. Like
I went back to the flagship and really loving it now. It opened up a little bit. I take the lid off.
Right. You know, I drink so much of this whiskey that it's one of those things I kind of take for granted. But when I let a glass of it or a pour of it sit out for an hour, and man, how much it opens up, it's pretty great. We are working on distribution, opening up hopefully 4 new markets in the next 4 months. Not California, unfortunately right now, but slowly building up to where people are honestly asking for us. And the distribution is there to support it. But 20 states as of today. No, excuse me, 18 states as of today. Western Canada and the 2 provinces there. South Africa we're in, as well as 8 countries in Europe. So if you find yourself in France or Germany or Italy, find the 12 stores that carry our product.
You found South Africa less intimidating than California?
Hey man, they came to us. They said, we want to buy a bunch of your whiskey. And we said, you betcha. You hire the boat, we'll put it on there. No, California's just so tough. It's just, I mean, it's a country, you know, it's just a beast. And we don't, like, again, there's 6 of us. When we can find the way to put a person out there to help us, you know, make a dent, then we will. I mean, I'm very impressed with this core group that you've got here. This interested in American Single Malt. It makes me very happy.
We all like a good single malt. I was curious, do you guys do any collaborations with like breweries? Anything like
Oh yeah. I mean, we've got 50 or so barrels of, you know, whiskey that are brewing projects gone awry or gone wherever. And they just stay in the distillery tasting room and go through little special projects like that. But we work with the breweries as much as we can. But to their, kudos to most of them. There's very little waste, here in Colorado. These guys and ladies that are in the brewing industry, they're efficient. So it's pretty rookie mistake for us to end up with 5,000 liters of bad beer or something anymore, or for anyone to have that much extra time to just brew a special fun project. Everyone's pretty busy. When projects come up, yeah, absolutely, they're fun. Most of it's barrel trade projects, though.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I scored a stout cask from another distillery as part of a lottery thing, and it's one of my favorite things is a stout cask finish on a whiskey, and I was just curious if that's something you guys have ever done or thought about doing.
Gimbal just died, so I'll hand hold it for a second. We won't. I'll tell you something. We won't ever finish a whiskey in a beer cask. That's just something that we're not going to do. It's a high risk thing to do, as well as it's not a flavor profile that we're going for. I know it's a weird thing to say that we'll never do. I'm sure we'll do it someday, but beer finished whiskey is just not on our radar at all.
Well, thanks.
Now, do we have a shitload of beer finished in our whiskey barrels? Absolutely, it's out there. All kinds. I really love it when the brewers are taking the peated malt and the sherry barrels that we use. That's what I love seeing them folks use.
So you guys made a stand on only using new oak, like a bourbon distillery, right? So
Yeah.
What do you do with all your used barrels?
Open market.
So you're not reusing them at all. You're not even trying your whiskey in a used barrel.
Oh, sorry. I'm speaking as of now. This conversation in 5 to 7 years will be a different conversation. Yeah, we got used oak going on, but we just started.
So you're not bottling anything in used oak, but you are experimenting with it to see what
we are. We have a couple experiments that we did like 2 years ago, like literally 2 barrels, but part of the barrel shortage stuff that happened here recently. We absolutely are. Some of our fresh bourbon barrels are getting refilled with white distillate, for sure, and more so just for fun.
Yeah.
At first it was like a shit, we need oak. We were just distilling and collecting and then waiting for a huge, order of barrels to come in to fill. And then we realized, like, why aren't we doing this? This is kind of silly. So I won't say there's dedicated, but probably about 12 to 20 barrels a year that will distill will be in used oak. And we'll see. I mean, it'll end up being married or blended or doing something fun with it, but we literally won't know for at least 4 to 5 years.
That's fair.
So I'll start writing that marketing stuff in 4 years.
If COVID taught us anything, it'll be here before you know it.
Right.
Did you realize it's December? It's almost 2024. Yeah, I didn't either.
That's the thing, is it's it's such a patient game, but yeah, when I'm planning, special releases at 24 and 25 right now, because you got to get the casks in now. So that time does go quick for sure. A lot of whiskey in between.
You were mentioning about,
Say it again.
you were mentioning about the barley between made for beer versus made for whiskey. What would be the difference between those two?
Protein content. Basically, if you want lower protein content for beer, you want higher protein content for whiskey. Well, we're not so worried about higher protein content, that is. Beers after the nitrogen, we're honestly after some of that protein, but the carbohydrate. As far as the malting side of it goes, we don't we're only malting, I don't want to say to the minimum, we're malting to the maximum efficiency. Everything past the point of our malting stoppage point becomes a roast. And you become, the further you roast, the less efficient your grain becomes. The more flavor you get, but the less efficient it is. And so, we're all of the malt that we tried in the beginning, and even the local malt that we had, it was just yielding half as much as the malt that we were importing when we first tried it. Now it's caught up, which is great. That's why we're going to use it. But also the flavors, they just weren't there. They were there. They were just they weren't what we wanted. And it's all about how it's grown, the soil it's grown in, the amount of nitrogen that's applied to it during its growing process, and then of course the malting process.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's a broad overview of it. Talk to the farmers and malters, and that's, you guys should have a whiskey club sometime about just the malting industry. It's beautiful. It's a fantastic industry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
barley tea tasting.
Sorry?
Do a barley tea tasting.
Oh, absolutely. 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 Our next American single malt convention, we don't really have one yet, but the daydream is to have it on a farm and to have it at one of our barley producing partners, because that's what this whiskey is really about. But yeah, barley teas, talking my language.
We've gotten the group to do that in an event with us. It was very fun. Hopefully informative for everyone too, but love doing it.
Yeah, we like the malt houses out here, they all host their, hey, come and, do the camping weekend and, hang out with us and all that kind of stuff. But it's time to take that consumer level. Like, we need to sell tickets to one of those things and have a Bonnaroo meets whiskey.
I think we're in.
Me too.
I've been
All right,
talking
what
to
else
a
can
lot
we
of
touch
brands, and yeah, that's a discussion we've been having for a good portion of 2 years. Of like, there are really cool events that brands put together that are targeted towards industry professionals, like bartenders and bar owners and whatnot, but consumers don't get to do them. And I'm trying to turn it around to like, let us be the spoke. I get why you're a
Right.
bartender to fall in love and learn about your brand, but like, invite us. We want to do it too. There's brands who go to apiaries to collect honey and then make cocktails with that honey and their whiskey. I'm like, I want to do that. I can easily get 20 people that want to do it.
Yeah, now he's got to find 500 in one place.
I don't know about 500. Yeah.
Is everyone or favorite still the 10 essentials?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, we got a nod from Wade.
I know there's a couple revisits that have been happening.
I finished the last of the peated and went back to the front, so I'm still kind of enjoying the flagship.
If anybody has any peated and port left, marry those together and you get a good idea of what one of our future projects will be.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
I see there's a sherry cask one on your website as well.
Where? On the internet?
It's a sherry finished bourbon. Never mind.
Yeah, there you go.
No sherry finished single malt. That seems like just a classic combination.
We had one. We did. We had a label of it. It was, sorry for the wonky camera. We did have a sherry finished single malt. Ended up being a single cask. So it was, over 400 bottles. We still have the label for it. We can put out a sherry finished malt anytime. it's a matter of like, how many of these things are we going to have, on the shelf? How many of these labels are we going to have available? And so that's where we are in our evolution. Is we're having our fun, but what are our core products going to be, and what's going to, where's those finishing oaks going to live in our everyday, profile. So we got the flagship. We'll always have a bib. We'll always have the peated malt that may evolve into a different thing. And we'll always have a finished, and maybe it's not always the port cask. Maybe it's just going to be, the European oak kind of thing. We're still evolving. We're still young. Somebody tried to mix. I love that. It's pretty good. Literally one of these tastings years ago, like deep in the heart of beginning of COVID kind of a thing. We did that same deal, and that's kind of what ended up becoming the trailhead for that special release last year.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan, so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. We got to discover Boulder Spirits and learn all about you guys and taste through the journey. We're looking forward to what you guys have in the future, and hopefully visiting the distillery. I know Wade's going to come represent us, stop by. Any other questions from the group?
Yeah, and while if there's any other questions coming up, yeah, if my information is please share it with anybody that ever asks. If anybody finds themselves in Colorado or back home for that sake, for some of our friends here, share my info. If you're gonna make your way out to Boulder, I'm gonna make some time to show you around. So please do that. Of course we love showing off, our house and where everything's made and all that kind of stuff, but we love sharing whiskey.
Awesome. Well, cheers. Thank you very much. Thanks for a fun evening. We appreciate you. And happy holidays.
Hey, happy holidays.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, cheers to you, Wade.